morning. Good morning, Brad. Thank you for
Morning.
being here.
Yeah.
What do you say we come in hot here? Code
Always
red.
good.
Code red. What can you tell us?
Code red. Well, how many people here run tech companies? A lot. Okay. How many people have declared a code red? Many. Okay. Companies declare code reds. It's a way of forcing the company to focus. It is actually, for us, for a company that's doing a zillion things and moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, it's actually quite refreshing. We will come out of it. I think what comes out of it, by the way, will be really exciting. And I don't know. It's actually funny when we were talking about kind of like, do we call this thing that we're doing, its moment of focus, a code red? I think someone made a comment like, someone will be on stage one day, fairly soon, answering a question to the press about it being a code red. So here we are.
And you're that person.
I'm that person.
You're that
So,
person.
yeah.
Where do you want to see focus in terms of enterprise, especially moving forward, especially since it's a code red?
Yeah. Well, for us, I think we have two kind of amazing levels of enterprise product right now. So we've got ChatGPT, which is kind of this user-level product that really unlocks productivity for teams. We released a report yesterday, by the way, the Enterprise AI report, which is a fairly large sample of customers that we work with that are using tools like ChatGPT. And the findings are really interesting. I encourage everyone to go check it out. But you see things like people reporting that they're saving an hour a day. We've seen message volume increase 30% by user year over year. Total messages up 8x. A really interesting thing that we've seen is people in non-technical functions are using coding models 36% more year over year than they were prior. So there's something interesting kind of happening there that I think I'd love to double click on here. So we have this kind of amazing set of tools now that I think make every team member, every worker at your company kind of supercharged, right? I think the expectation should be that people can and will do more. And then we have something at the lower level on our APIs that let developers build with the models in a very raw way, in a very direct access type of way. What we don't have right now is much in the middle. And I think one of the things that we're starting to see are tools like Codex, where you've got, it's a user level tool, it's user directed. It's basically kind of an AI software engineer in many ways, but leverages a lot of the infrastructure of the company. So to have a software engineer, an AI software engineer in your organization, it's going to need to leverage your organization's code base. That to me feels like the trend in the focus area is how do you now have really powerful tools that can solve very long horizon tasks agentically, that can be directed by people who really understand the work, but leverage a lot of the systems, the data, the SOPs, the access controls, the security protocols, the permissions in the enterprise to actually navigate and do really long horizon complex work.
I was going to say, before we totally move on from the code red, is part of the thing you're hoping for then that this sort of refocus is pushing towards ChatGPT being able to do more long horizon tasks then for these enterprises?
I think a big part of it is really just starting to push on the rate that we see kind of improvement in the focus areas within the models that we kind of want to see improvement over the next few cycles. But what you're going to see, I think, even starting fairly soon, will be a really exciting series of things that we release that I think will start to kind of move a little bit of that Overton window on what people think is now possible in terms of what can be configured both in the enterprise and also for consumer. Personally, I wake up every day and think about enterprise, and so for me, that is the exciting thing, right, is we have not yet really captured that moment of kind of enterprise AI penetration, and I think what most companies want AI to be able to do in their organization. It's been a very user-led thing, it's been a very developer-led thing, but how do you actually make these systems capable at the types of processes and the types of work that define every organization and every large enterprise?
One of the things I'd also be curious about in this context is the partnership. You had a very busy news week last week. I don't know if you heard.
I missed it.
You missed it. You missed it. You announced a partnership with Thrive.
Yeah.
What role does that play in this equation?
So yeah, we announced a partnership with Thrive has an entity that they've built called Thrive Holdings. We're super excited about this partnership, and Thrive Holdings brings together. I think I tweeted something to this effect.
And Thrive is an investor in OpenAI as well.
They're an investor in OpenAI. But they're an interesting company. They're kind of like a VC on the one hand, but then they're kind of all company builders on the other. And so we have this kinship, I think, with Thrive that somewhat transcends the thinking of them purely as an investor. They're very interested in what we're building and actually how to apply it. And so they had an idea of if you could really go buy companies and actually think about transformation, not just as a process of like giving the organization AI, but actually rethinking the entire structure of the organization, rethinking actually how you even bring together both models, organizational change management, but then also product building. I think we underrate actually how important the product building component of this is. Can you marry those three things in a very intentional way that actually drives transformation? So it's a partnership to explore that. And I think we lean on them for a lot of their competencies, and obviously we bring a lot of energy and I think excitement about what we think the models are capable of doing. And so you kind of combine those two things and hopefully we do something interesting.
I will say a lot of people have called the deal quite circular. What do you say to that?
I wouldn't call it circular. I don't actually know what about it would be circular, but I think the way we look at it is like we're in the business of building companies, right? And I think AI at the end of the day is in service to serving like organizations. And I think that like it's not like AI is like not like a piece of software that you just like subscribe to. Although I think sometimes there is that misconception because people are like, oh, I can just buy ChatGPT Enterprise and I'm done.
Hold over from the SaaS era.
Yeah, we had this kind of this world of like almost kind of the equivalent of fast fashion. We kind of had fast software. And it's kind of like, oh, I need this thing over here, so I kind of like turn that little thing on and turn this little thing on. And I think when you look at what AI actually points to in the enterprise, in my opinion, it really is about this kind of replatforming. It's actually, you have to rethink entire parts of the business, like top to bottom, like how do they work? And the analogy that I use with CEOs when I talk about this is imagine there was a startup that was just attacking one area of your business. And that could be part of your product, it could be part of your operations, it could be anything. And you just you handed it to two really enterprising founders. How would they think about this problem and how different is that than the way you're currently thinking about this problem? And that has a way of clarifying, I think, for CEOs, kind of the mindset you have to have somewhat. And so a lot of the Thrive work is informed by that, right? It's actually being able to look at a problem that way and say, okay, great, we are a bunch of company builders and founders and researchers and deployed engineers, and we're gonna attack this problem the way we would think about building product. And I think that's exciting.
You said just now that you wake up every day thinking about enterprise AI.
Do you not?
Yeah, I mean, actually, kind of. Actually, kind of, yeah. I mean, maybe we're actually both in this. Walk me through what some of your deployments are like. Particularly, we're at a Fortune conference. Particularly with the Fortune 500.
Yeah. So.
What was the first ever deployment with a Fortune 500 company?
The first
ever deployment with a Fortune 500 company.
I have no idea, honestly. It was kind of a whirlwind because when we built the API initially, we really built it for developers, and we didn't know that there was going to necessarily be a lot of uptake in the enterprise. We didn't think of it that way. We built ChatGPT. We kind of just built it as a research experiment. We didn't think of it as an enterprise product, and so almost all of our engagement to date in the enterprise has been organic. It hasn't been intentional in the sense of us being like, okay, there's a customer there, and we want to go win that customer. We follow.
They're coming to you.
They're coming to us, and they're saying, I'm seeing the transformation in my business, and I kind of want to double click on this and explore what this means. And obviously now, with the cycle being what it is, it's much more known, and I think more understood how AI can transform your business. But at first, it was very organic. I think we generally kind of categorize things into roughly 3 areas. So we tend to think about kind of team level enablement. We tend to think about kind of product and customer facing enablement, and then we kind of think about process enablement. So I would say kind of in each of those categories, we've seen relatively different levels of acceleration in terms of progress.
What does high acceleration look like?
High acceleration would be for me kind of the team level, user level progress. Right now, you can access an AI system, a powerful AI system that can rebuild your entire website. You have models like Sora that can create really high quality, high fidelity visual assets, media assets for your organization that are true to your brand guidelines, true to anything else. You have coding models like Codex that can do really long horizon end-to-end software engineering tasks. I think trend-wise, you'll start to see that happen more and more. So people are able to actually configure these kind of agentic systems to start to do that type of work. One of the things that came through in our report actually is things like custom GPTs and projects, which are features of ChatGPT, a meaningful percent of our message volume, actually now 20% I think in the enterprise flows through those types of configured agent experiences. And that's up 20x year over year. And so the demand that users—
Did that surprise you?
It did surprise me. Mostly because I always kind of underrate, I think, the level of desire people have to really take control of their workflow, and also to start to find ways to really accelerate themselves. People actually are amazingly creative, and you see that in the enterprise in a real way. And so that to me feels like the high acceleration area right now. Is like if your teams are not using the best models to do everything from core productivity work to software engineering to media to anything else, that feels like a miss. I think you've got a lot of organizations also that are starting to rethink customer experience. We work really closely with T-Mobile, for example. I love T-Mobile as an example because when we first talked to T-Mobile, they came to us and said, we are really rethinking kind of how we imagine our contact center. And in my head, I was like, okay, at first I'm like, that's probably kind of customer support at the base level, and I think we could probably help you with that. And I remember Mike Sievert telling me, for us, this isn't customer support. When we have a relationship with a customer, the points of contact that we have with that customer start at the point of purchase when they become a subscriber, and thereafter, the majority of contact points that they have with T-Mobile come through our contact center support center. And so we don't see that as a channel just to solve people's problems when things don't work. We actually see it as a communication channel to advance customers' understanding of our products, to give them benefits, to get feedback.
It's almost more like an information center rather than a customer support apparatus.
And to distill the intent. Like, what is it that customers really feel? What do they really want? And how do we drive at that in the purest way? And that actually totally changed how we think about the engagement that we did with them, because for us, we were really about and the thing that they were designing was called Intent CX. But AI models are really good at distilling that intent. They're really good at almost Socratically getting to kind of what customers really want in ways that are approachable, feel warm, are multimodal. And that, when you kind of think of it on that basis, it comes back to what I was saying earlier. You're not actually just thinking about like an AI implementation, right? It's not like just an adoption of a technology. You're actually rethinking your entire process around this kind of new platform. And so we think that has a lot of room to run. And then, of course, there's a lot of things that are in the business process that are complex. So things like the supply chain, the revenue cycle, things like that.
I was going to say, what are some areas that are sticky where you're trying to figure out if there really is an application? Yeah,
the toughest areas for us still are the areas that have kind of definitionally a lot of rules and kind of determinism in them. So it's areas where you've got a very long end-to-end process. There's a lot of institutional knowledge as to how that process is done. It tends to be where you have the people who've been at the company for 20 years who just really know that thing like the back of their hand. And if you lost that person, you'd be like, God damn. That's where AI still needs it. It's almost like taking this very raw intelligence and dropping it into this area that is kind of core to the business, the business's operations, but where it's like, man, you really should have, you'd benefit from having been here for 20 years. That's almost kind of always how I describe it, as trying to get AI to climb the curve to the level of proficiency of someone who's been doing something or a process that's been in place for that long is tough. But I think that's also where the opportunity is. And I think you'll see us start to invest there to be able to start to standardize some of the components for how we think about implementing AI in those parts of the business. And I don't see over time why we won't have models that actually learn those parts of the business and those processes really quickly. And that to me is the exciting thing.
OpenAI is valued at $500 billion, right? As you think about the future, what does OpenAI's moat look like? What does it mean to grow into that valuation? And what role does enterprise play? What role do these Fortune 500 customers play in that?
Yeah, look, we tend to never really focus on valuation. We never really tend to focus on, I never do the business school analysis of what's our moat and things like that. I only really ever know of one true moat, which is you've got to create enduring value for customers. It sounds cliche, but I come from YC prior to this, and there's always a question in my mind of why do startups win? And the companies that I would always bet on are the ones that find the exploit of where you have an incredibly important large company, but incredibly high customer dissatisfaction with that company. And they kind of wedge themselves right into that gap, and they start to just whittle away. And before you know it, you've got an entirely new company that's gotten built that becomes kind of standard of care in an area. And people wonder where that company came from. And it was because they were obsessively focused on customer value, and they were obsessively focused on the thing that the incumbent kind of legacy provider wasn't doing well. And I don't think it's any different for us. We have new tools. We have a new platform. It's really exciting. I think the excitement around it is more than justified. But at the end of the day, we've still got to do that thing, right? We are new, and we've got to prove to people that AI as a solution is better, is going to solve the problem better, create more value for them and their customers and their business than the existing thing.
Who here, out of curiosity, is trying to apply AI to their business right now? Raise your hand. I figure that everyone's laughing because I figure the answer is everybody, right? Give or take. If someone, particularly at a Fortune 500 company, a CEO, let's say, was starting over completely tomorrow, applying AI, what would you say they need to do in the next 90 days?
So I think in the enterprise, this is a very people-led thing, and I think that's underrated, and we tend to kind of discount somewhat the role that the people in the organization have to play. And of course, there's all the memes and tropes about automation and job taking and stuff, and we actually have a very different perspective on this, which is like your people are still your best asset, right? And a lot of almost think of AI more like adding a lot of people to your organization who give all the people who are there a lot of leverage. And the thing that I kind of say to CEOs is like, if you poured, I don't know, let's say you run a 50,000 person organization, and all of a sudden you poured another 10,000 people into that organization, that's a lot of change to manage, right? In some sense, it's exciting. It's like, wow, we have 10,000 more people to do stuff with. But on the other hand, it's kind of overwhelming. You're like, what do I do with 10,000 more people, right? The processes have to change. The systems have to change. We can now do things that we couldn't do before. Our best people get a lot more leverage if they can work with 5 other good people to kind of lift them up and do something new and interesting. So it's kind of the same here. It's a rethink of the organization. You have to, I think there's a process of building familiarity that is going to take time. We invest really heavily with customers, not only just in kind of the AI enablement part, but the people enablement part. That was also a big focus for us, I think, in our report, is how important that part of the process is. And that I think is kind of the shape somewhat of how this impacts things. It means that AI has such a deflationary impact that what it means is organizations can just do way more. And if you think about the cost of producing something, right, whether it's a piece of software, a piece of media, a new product, a customer interaction, all of that now getting cut by a factor of 10, 100, 1 million, right? The number of things your organization can do, in theory, should go up by a similar factor. And it's just about accumulating those wins over time. And that's hard. It takes mastery of it, but I think over time you'll see that a lot of organizations learn that, adopt it, and win, and there will of course be others that don't.
Now, as we're running out of time here, you and your wife just had a baby. Congratulations.
Yes,
yep, you can clap. You can clap. It's okay. I saw everyone's hands go up. You can clap. How has that changed your perspective on what our AI future can and should look like?
How much time do we have left?
47 seconds.
Oh man. Okay. Well, it's been delightful. On a purely personal level, I feel like for 8 years I've done nothing but think about OpenAI, and I now have these 2 bookends of my day that are 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes at night, where I just put my phone in another room and I just think about her. That's huge for you. It's big for me. And that it's almost meditative in a weird way, unless she's screaming in my ear, but it's still meditative that way. I think the thing that we were just talking about also backstage a little bit is kids that are growing up today with these types of tools and systems will just have a different relationship with computers. I have a friend who has a 2-year-old, and he was telling me that she has no conception of a GUI, basically. There's no point and click and mouse and keyboard, and even kind of, I mean, you've probably seen kids with iPads, they kind of intuitively learn how to touch and move around and manipulate an iPad. She's even kind of past that point. She now sees a computer and it's hey, chat, right? And the only thing that she can conceive, because it's so imprinted in her brain in terms of how that computer should work, is that I can talk to it and it talks back to me. And it's the same muscle that she's building talking to her parents, right? It's kind of the same, she's starting to verbalize stuff, she has ideas, she has questions, she's curious. She loves music, so she kind of she wants like things to sing along with. And
Don't we all?
It just gives her exactly what she wants. And so she's entirely used to being able to like ask a computer for a thing she wants and get it immediately and not have to fumble around with like, what am I in and like, where do I go? And like, what's this hamburger menu say that I should do and so on. And I think that's gonna be the future. And I think that's a cool future. I think like, that's like the vision that I think like technologists have been striving for decades are systems that really kind of meet humanity where they're at. And all of these edifices and all of these abstractions that we've created on top of technology have all been to try and drive at that, but we just haven't quite had the tool set. So I'm really excited about it.
Brad, thank you so much.
Thank you.